Hello, everybody, and welcome to our coverage of the G1 Climax, night number 2 of 19. Welcome, Way. Are you ready?
Night number 2. I mean, I have to be by this point, don't I?
You have to, yes.
Oh yeah.
I've watched so much wrestling this weekend that I just had to hit stop today and just could not proceed further with any more professional wrestling than was manageable.
Yeah. This weekend felt pretty crazy. Like it felt like as hectic as like a WrestleMania weekend. And it's not going to be that uncommon in the future, John. You know, with these collisions on Saturdays, especially with the G1 going on.
Yeah, the next month is certainly going to be trying to get in all of this stuff. What, I'm curious, did you watch this weekend? What did you seek out?
I saw the first night of the G1, so that was already like a pretty big time investment. I watched the second half of Collision, which ended up probably being like the lesser talked about half of Collision. And of course, I watched Yoshihiko versus Mike Bailey.
Yeah, we both, as we all complain about how much there was to watch, both of us made time to watch that. I thought that was spectacular.
So
I thought it
fun.
was like, it's not even to me okay, it might not be your preference. If you cannot appreciate like having an 18-minute match with a doll that has 800 people at the Melrose Ballroom captivated, my rule is you can hate it, but you have to be able to replicate that if it's just so mindless. And so like that to me would be so much harder than doing any type of pro wrestling match.
Mm-hmm. I've always felt that way about any of these Yoshihiko matches or Kenny Omega wrestling, you know, a little girl, like any of these types of performances that tend to I think what people have an issue with is that maybe it like sort of like maybe they believe mocks sort of like the I don't know, immersion of something like what professional wrestling should be, and that's supposed to be some sort of like you know, believable simulation of real life. But that's not why we all enjoy pro wrestling. Certainly when you watch something like The Undertaker, what sort of simulation is that? It's about entertainment. It's about like, you know, impressive physical feats, and watching a Yoshihiko match is always a very impressive physical feat.
Yeah, I mean, it's I don't want to make this like a larger topic than it is, but like number one, this is probably your most dedicated, loyal pro wrestling followers that are seeking something like this out. They have a clear appreciation for the art of it that I think you can find in something like this. I love the fact that within 12 hours, I watched Speedball Mike Bailey and Yoshihiko. And the next morning, I was watching Katsuhiko Nakajima and Kento Miyahara. And this is all professional wrestling. And I can appreciate wide variances of it. And I mean, there's so much larger real stuff that makes the industry look poor and embarrassing. This is hardly it. And I like, you don't have to like it. I'm not here to legislate what you like and dislike. But to me, it's like, I just watched that and I'm super impressed. Like, it would be no different than someone going up and doing a sketch comedy show all by themselves on a stage. And I would be in awe of that, of having no one to play off of and having an audience captivated and watching you and keeping their interest and growing throughout 18 minutes. Like, that to me is an unbelievable achievement that someone could pull off.
Well, I would suggest this might be more akin to somebody getting up on stage and performing the entirety of The Godfather by themselves, with them playing every single character, because that's basically what we saw with Mike Bailey versus Yoshihiko. A replication,
which would be clever for the first 2 minutes of someone trying this, but by minute 18, I would be like, wow, this is dreadful to imagine.
Yeah. I almost don't even want to spoil it, like, for people that haven't seen it. So if you ever intend on going out to watch it, just sign up for, what is it, Fight Plus?
Yes,
is that what it's called?
Fight Plus.
Fight Plus.
You know, the GCW show from Friday night.
Yeah, go and do yourself a favor, watch it. Utami Hayashishita is also on the show, taking on Lufisto in the main event. Worth going out just to kind of watch all those things, of course. But if you don't care, or if you just want to listen on, so what happened was Mike Bailey and Yoshihiko, of course, if you don't even know who that is,
don't ruin who won.
Yoshihiko, of course, the blow-up doll, made famous in DDT via Kota Ibushi and several others. Mike Bailey had this match with a blow-up doll, and move for move, for a good portion of the entire match, replicated Omega versus Ospreay number 2. Now, at what point, John, did you realize, did it click in your head that that's what was being attempted here?
Oh, I think as soon as the Oscutter spot was hit, I realized what he was doing here, and then just
Because I watched it knowing that he was doing that, and from the get-go, you see like everything was there, including like the the opening sort of like headlock sequences, all the way to like a you can't escape attempt, and of course everything with Mao.
how many times do you think he's watched that match?
A guy like Mike Bailey, I'm sure more than 5 times. Yeah, he's a studier for sure.
Yeah,
It's incredible.
we should get him back on. It was like, yeah, best the Super Juniors was nice. You've done all these matches. We want to talk about the Yoshihiko match with you.
Yeah. Well,
Let's
we should
break
get
this down.
Yoshihiko. Really, we've already spoken to Mike Bailey.
Maybe we could get both of them on together.
Well,
Split screen.
As much as I think,
depending on Yoshihiko's condition. I mean, did get a punctured forehead.
I guess does Yoshihiko speak English? That's the biggest question.
Might need
Maybe we'll get a translator. Yeah.
Yeah, it was great. Like the rolling German spot, I was just like, it was unreal.
Some of these things are just like,
I don't care. Like
insane.
you have to, there has to be a portion of, and it's funny because like it was always the saying, like this guy could have a great match with a broomstick. And that was like considered such a compliment. I was like, okay, let's imagine Ric Flair literally wrestling with a broomstick. Would it be that entertaining?
Ric Flair Yoshihiko, I think that's a dream match, really. We could still get it. Ric
Flair's real last match.
His real last match. Yoshihiko retires Ric Flair.
That was my last match against a human. That would be the one allowance I think people would give Flair to break.
Somebody tell Conrad to convince him to do that. But like you said, John, like an analogy I like to make is you saying that like wrestling should only be one thing is like saying movies should only be dramatic Oscar Best Picture nominee films. When we all love how many people would be out there saying you like comedies? What's wrong with you? Movies should reflect real life. They should be completely as simulations of real life. You like sci-fi? That that stuff like completely kills my immersion. It bastardizes the art form of filmmaking. I mean, how silly does that sound? Or people who think like, oh, music should only be classical, like what, like rap, like these guys don't even play instruments. Like, how silly does that sound? And why are we making pro wrestling the same?
It's all in what you're seeking out. Like, I'm always curious to see like what works with people, what limits can you expand upon that ultimately you are just trying to deliver to an audience. And if an audience is engaged by it, then I think you should learn from that, and you can dismiss it. Again, like it doesn't have to be everyone's cup of tea, much like a match on the G1 doesn't have to be your cup of tea. There's definitely a match we're going to talk about that was not my cup of tea today, and that's fine. That is art. Like, it is not going to be my love of something might be Wei's hatred of something, and that's cool. Like, and stuff like this is usually it's the opposite, like where you might have had like a more acceptance of a match like that. But I can't watch that 18 minutes and not be just very impressed at what I'm seeing, and somebody pulling this off and an audience on their feet for this as well. Like, I just think like that takes an unbelievable amount of skill. And if you can't at least acknowledge that, I think you just greatly underestimate what that entails to do in front of an audience. And you can apply it to any art form of handicapping someone in that respect to give a performance.
Yeah, and I swear, everybody, this is a G1 review.
No, we're done. That's it.
We don't always go on these tangents, okay? Especially our other co-hosts. They're not going to, spend all like 10 minutes talking about Yoshihiko. But
there's a lot of stuff from the weekend I want to chat with you about, but we'll save that for Monday night after Raw, because there was so much coming out of the show. But let us fast forward to the G1.
And before we even do that, let's remember this is a free show. So hello, everybody listening to us on probably a Monday morning. A lot of you guys, this is part of our post wrestling cafe G1 coverage that we have been doing every single summer now, as part of our bonus coverage over on postwrestlingcafe.com.
This is the 11th summer I've done these.
That's crazy. Wow. We didn't celebrate 10 years.
No, it came and went.
Well, 11 is a pretty big number as well. So,
but the first few were just myself talking in a room by myself. I mean, it wasn't, I didn't get in too many arguments or debate with anybody.
You were having a Yoshihiko match with your G1 coverage.
I guess so. I guess so. So that was that was how these started. How I kept myself busy at a time when I was not all that busy.
That is right. Yeah, it's been an annual tradition for John Pollock for 11 years. It's been 5 years for me, but this year, of course, we also have a bunch of other people joining us as well. Bruce Lord and Karen Peterson, who did a great job covering opening night, which you can find right now over at the Post Wrestling Cafe. WH Park and Eric Marcotte will be teaming up later on in this series. So bonus shows every single card of the G1 for those who subscribe at the Post Wrestling Cafe. It's for $6 a month, or video.postwrestling.com, or even on Apple Podcasts for those of you listening there.
Yeah, it's a great time to jump on board. You will have every G1 card covered for you, in addition to all of our other regular shows on the Cafe, Rewind to SmackDown, Collision Course, all of it coming your way on the Post Wrestling Cafe. And it also comes with everyone's unique ranking system. Now, Wei and I are preferential to coffee, but I love Bruce's scotch. That I was just listening when he mentioned that Godfather drink of his, like whiskey with a splash of amaretto. Like he was just throwing out ideas there. I've never heard of that concoction, but I loved it. And then Karen introducing us to the ice cream method.
The ice cream ratings. Yeah. I mean, of course, Dave Meltzer pioneering the match rating system. He's got his stars. We're partial to coffee, but somehow it's like, it's kind of descended into just a complete, like, unintelligible, like, what it's basically what do you like to drink, or what do you like to eat?
And I'm curious what Eric is going to introduce to us. Maybe like a Sonata Suits or something like that. I mean, how is he going to rank?
I don't know. WHS sandwiches, of course. It's just, I like, this is supposed to be a way for like us to tell people what to watch. And I think it's just completely broken down to just like, what do you like to eat?
Anything notable that came out of night one for you? Any of the standouts? What was your match of the show?
For me, it was I really liked all the matches from the quote unquote Reiwa Three Musketeers. I thought all three of them looked tremendous. You had a match, of course, between Ren Narita and Shota Umino, and those two were excellent with each other.
That was my match of the show.
Mm-hmm. Yota Tsuji and Gabriel Kidd. Sorry, Yota Tsuji and Kaito Kiyomiya. Yeah, that was probably my other contender for match of the night. I thought like A block is the young kids block, and all the young kids impressed, I felt.
And some of the older guys, because I thought Taichi had a great match with Will Ospreay. That was my second match of the that was my number 2 match of the show as well. I guess mild upset with Taichi beating Will Ospreay, but you had Okada beating Great Okan. Okada and Okan did nothing for me. I thought it was very by the numbers.
Same.
And just didn't move me in any meaningful way. It was just a match for me. And then Sonata retaining against Hikuleo, which was fine. But not a show stealer by any stretch, but Sonata gets the 2 points coming out of that. So you can go listen to Bruce and Karen. They have a great review of night number 1. We're going to be focusing on Sunday show, their second night in Sapporo, doing 2,888. Yeah, I'm surprised Bruce didn't mix in Sapporo with any of his rankings for these 2 nights.
I think maybe next year's G1, maybe he'll break out the beer rankings as well. But we should know that these 2 shows are available for free to watch on New Japan World. So NJPWWorld.com is, I guess, a smart way, for them to be able to get out, just get people on board for this first weekend.
And just comparing the attendances, night 1 they drew 3,145, which 1 year ago, they were in the same cities for the same opening 2 nights. So they were up from last year's opening night. That was 2,891. Night 2 this year drew 2,888, which compares to 2,942 from last year. So there were a grand total of like 54 more fans last year. So I don't know what that tells you about the health of New Japan year to year. Fairly static between the second nights. And we get into Kevin Kelly and Chris Charlton, who are on the English broadcast for night number 2. And we're starting off with the C block with Tomohiro Ishii and David Finlay. And Finlay is working on the knee of Ishii and is kicking away at it. At one point, Ishii just no-sells as he's doing like the John Jones kick to the knee, and then hits a pounce onto Finlay. And Finlay ducks a sliding D, hits a release German and a Dominator. And after a spear, that generates a near fall for Finlay. And then gets headbutted by Ishii in response. This killer lariat for a 2 count at the 15-minute mark. And we can talk about this because this year they are incorporating 20-minute time limits as opposed to the previous 30-minute time limits. So I think just watching this for the 2 nights, it adds such more urgency, and the audience is buzzing when they give the 5 minutes remaining, and there's an energy in the crowd, at least the first 2 nights when you're teasing the time limit. And in the case of Narita and Umino, going the full 20 minutes on night number 1. So time is winding down. Finlay lifts him up for, it looks like a reverse Bloody Sunday, but turns it into a suplex before hitting Oblivion. And David Finlay gets his first 2 points of the tournament, 15 minutes and 55 seconds.
Mm-hmm. Well, first on the 20-minute time limit thing, I think it's a change that I absolutely love. One of my big complaints is that, especially in the main events in New Japan Pro Wrestling, a lot of matches are just kind of needlessly long for the sake of, I don't know, fitting in sort of a format where like main events have to be 30 minutes. And I've never liked that. I felt like that's kind of been, forced.
And they have kind of gotten away from that this year with like the exceptionally lengthy main events for the sake of it. And I'm sure that ties it in here as well. You're doing 8 tournament matches. You want to keep these at like 3-hour shows.
Yeah, that's the big difference too. Rather than having undercard multi-man matches, every single match now is a part of the G1, and that can get really exhausting. When you tell the audience that all you really have to invest is 20 minutes per, I think it makes it way easier to keep up with it. It keeps people's energy throughout the course of the evening, and allows for you to tell stories with time limit draws that are a lot more justifiable. So I'm in huge favor of this change. I thought this was a pretty good match. One that followed the Ishii formula pretty closely. I thought Finlay looked decent. I think he has heel charisma that's really good. He played a more than capable heel partner for Ishii, although I didn't find the middle portion of the match with him in control all that compelling. But Ishii's selling was strong and nuanced as always. It's maybe just a portion of a match that felt kind of like a prerequisite rather than something a bit more worthwhile. So what do you think, John?
This was a large coffee. Like a large black coffee, no milk, no sugar, no frills, just an 8 a.m. order to get your day started. It does the job of just kickstarting you to get the day going, and that was it. Satisfying, but nothing, no additives to the coffee.
And as an opener, like I don't know if they're seeking to go the XL level, like with false finishes and whatnot. Like maybe large is about what you would anticipate. I went large 1 cream myself. And next people listening to this for the first time are like, what?
It is whatever you want to make of it. That's the system right there. Hirooki Goto against Toru Yano in the D block. Toru Yano accompanied by Tomukun. Do you want to explain, Wei?
Tomukun, who appears to be the official mascot of the Nobori Betsu region of Hokkaido, town in Hokkaido here. So a local town mascot accompanying Toru Yano.
He was out. I imagine he.
We can't assume anything.
No, we can't.
It's 2023.
So they note that Yano had the shortest match in G1 history last year at 18 seconds. So he immediately goes for a cover, and the crowd is buzzing, thinking he might break his own record. But it's a great near fall spot, and Goto kicks out, and then Yano reverses the Goto Shiki for another near fall, and we go to the floor. And both are trying to Irish whip the other into the barricade, and they're just spinning each other around and around, getting dizzy. And it ends with Goto going into the rail. And Goto goes underneath the ring, and Tomukun is sent under the ring with Yano going too. So the ref is just left. Everyone is underneath the ring, and the count begins. Yano comes out on the other end, and then eventually Goto comes out and has the top headpiece, the mask of Tomukun on top of his head as he is all discombobulated and gets it off and just gets in at the count of 19. And forget the backstage interviews. I want the pre-match interviews of like how this was pitched to Goto and whether he suggested, let's get it right to 19 and coming up with the spot. I found this comical. Like a Yano match, sometimes he is, I think, brilliant. There's other times that to me, it's just, he's out of ideas. This to me was a fresh one that they had.
Going back to the conversation we had earlier, John, you know, pro wrestling can really be it's a canvas for artists to paint on. And sometimes artists might paint a caricature, you know, a funny picture. And that's what Toru Yano is. And he offers a wonderful physical break for a lot of the participants, but I think also a creative break and for you know, the other wrestlers and certainly for the audience when they're trying to watch these shows. And like you said, John, sometimes the results are maybe routine and tiresome. Other times when they're creative, they're completely memorable. And I thought this was one of those. I thought this was a really fun comedy match that offered something different from the usual Yano bag of tricks. And principally, in any sort of like successful comedy duo, you need a great kind of wild comedy, funny person, and you need a great straight man. And I don't know if you can ask for a better straight man than somebody as stoic as Hirooki Goto, somebody you would never picture doing any sort of comedy match.
Suzuki would have done the spot.
Suzuki's way funnier though. He's done everything. But yeah, Goto like is the last person I would expect to want to play along with something like this. And I thought he was great. Like the reverse Irish whip, like repeatedly in the middle was hilarious. Him putting on the helmet, it was very creative and again felt different from a usual Yano match.
So Goto gets sent into an exposed turnbuckle, and then Yano goes for the low blow, but he is stopped by Goto, who headbutts Yano and then traps the wrists and hits the GTR. Goto wins in 6 minutes and 44 seconds. And then Tomohiro emerges from underneath the ring, leaving with Yano to the back. So Goto gets his 2 points. I went medium here with a milk. It was fun for what it was.
Yeah, well, that's something that I think that I've come to realize about like these sort of matches. They never get rated that high, you know, and there will never be a 4-star Toru Yano match.
He had a pretty great one with Kenny Omega. Like, listen,
was that a 4-star match?
Listen, Bailey and Yoshihiko, like I would go pretty high on that one. So it can be done. I'm not going to overrate this one though, just on the fact that incorporating a mascot for a countout tease. Like, it was fun.
I guess like I think so much of like our like maybe collective idea of what a good match is constitutes how much physicality is involved. And Yano matches typically are very easy on the body. But I want to this year, John, just go by how entertained I was.
Give your extra large. Just give it up. Right.
It's not an XL, but I'm giving this one a large one cream, same as you know the first match. For what it maybe lacked in physicality, I thought it made up for it in overall engagement and entertainment. I thought it was a lot of fun.
I think for one show we should do like we have. Like, let's really complicate it, and we'll get like a certain like milliliters of coffee that we can distribute over 8 matches. So you have to be judicious in how much you give out because you can't run out of coffee.
So we'll have an actual physical pot of coffee.
Yeah, right? Or at least we can do the math as we go because
we got to do it for real. We got to have like you and I.
You have to actually drink the amount you give out.
Okay. Yep. That might make for a pretty quick review.
That'd be gross. I think by the end, I think I'd be watching some terrible matches, or at least telling myself I did. Next match. Okay, so this was very interesting. It was Aaron Henare against Mikey Nichols, and Nichols makes his entrance, and Henare comes out, and if you remember at the press conference, his face was all covered, and I mean, I didn't even think twice about it. I was like, I don't know, maybe this guy's just, you know, he's being a responsible person post-pandemic.
Is that? I thought it was like kind of a cool look. Is he like going for like a Daft Punk thing, you know?
So it turns out, and I think we all missed this unless you were really paying attention, but on July the 5th, the Maori News did do a feature on Aaron Henare, and he got it's called a meteora on his face to honor his Maori roots. And this is essentially a tattoo across his face that he stated was the most painful thing he has ever undergone in his life. And this like stunned everyone when he revealed it here. Although he wasn't necessarily hiding this, like this feature had been out for like 10 days or so. But this, I mean, they showed the pictures of it and his family watching him and how important this means for his roots. And also the fact like obviously he was going to give New Japan a heads up on this, but in Japan, like there are places you cannot enter with a tattoo.
Oh, yeah.
And it appears like he is not going to have any kind of limitations in Japan with this.
I
So
mean,
anyway,
as a wrestler, like going to wrestling venues, obviously not. But can he go to like an onsen? You know that like, or all onsens? I mean, you can even have a simple tattoo on your like arm, and some places might not allow you, just because I believe to like the association with the Yakuza. Um, but yeah, anyway,
yeah, it says here the Meteora brings a lot more than just visual, spiritual, and emotional change for Henare. He must also navigate the land of the rising sun with a visual tattoo, which Japanese view as taboo or connected to gangsters. Though not
Mhm.
illegal, some places in Japan dictate whether people must cover tattoos up before they enter a premises or be denied from entering, such as restaurants and gyms. But it's not a problem for someone answering the call of his ancestors. Henare has already given the company New Japan the heads up about his Meteora, and with its acceptance, will compete inside the ring without any fear of being denied through the door when he returns to action in August. So,
well, hey, listen, if there's a field where like tattoos on the face are kind of like not just accepted but sort of welcome, I mean, it's professional wrestling. You know, it makes him look like a standout. You know,
well, I want to make sure
interesting.
this guy can go to Caesarea and stuff. Like, it's nice that you can go wrestle, but I hope he can go and get his like general,
Yeah.
have lunch and not worry about being turned away.
No, I hope he knows somebody at Caesarea who can hook him up. I think it's really cool. You know, Chris Charlton made a big deal about saying how this is the first person in pro sports to display these markings, and I can only imagine, if you come from that background, what it means to see somebody like this proudly sporting, taking a risk, really, for your professional and personal life, and doing something like this. So, um, I feel like this is not even the biggest talking point of this match.
It will not be. So Kosei Fujita is in the corner of Mikey Nichols. So this was the first of 3 TMDK matches on this show with Shane Haste and Zack Sabre Jr. to come. And Nichols gets sent over the barricade with an Irish whip, and then Henare hits a curb stomp. And then Mikey Nichols goes for a tornado DDT, and this thing looked so bad as he executed this. This was my first concerning spot of the match, but by the end, I don't think anyone was even paying attention to this. Then they get on all fours and they just start bashing each other in the head with headbutt, headbutt, headbutt. And suddenly Mikey Nichols is busted open from these headbutts. A favorite spot of ours.
So they do this like typically. I've seen it. We saw it in Stardom. We've seen it in New Japan matches, even like, this year. I don't think I've heard thuds this hard.
This was the ugly clunking
since Okada versus Shibata. Like, it directly reminded me of that, because you heard that. Like, can I make that sound like right now? Like, like.
I mean, it was only a few months after Okada Shibata that Kevin Owens and Vince McMahon did the headbutt spot as well, and that was a pretty ugly one too. And you're talking about a much older guy in Vince taking that.
So anyway, Mikey Nichols, like, bleeding from the head. And then what concerned me the most was like them doing some spots afterwards. Like, I believe it was some sort of like forearm or something, and Nichols' feet were shaky. Now, of course, in wrestling, anytime it could always just be great selling, but man, like I had reason to believe that it wasn't just that.
He then hits his version of the Blue Thunder Bomb, the Mikey Bomb, which has to be the least threatening name that has ever been put in front of bomb that you can come up with. It's the Mikey Bomb.
Yeah. It sounds like a shot that, a frat house would put together.
It's like, how unoriginal could it be to just insert your name? Like, hey, what's your finisher? It's the John Bomb.
That sounds kind of cool, actually.
The John Bomb.
That
does sound better than the Mikey Bomb.
I think you should just change it, Pollock, to Bomb as your last name.
Nichols then misses a moonsault off the top, and Henare hits the step-up knee, the Justice knee, in honor of Yuji Nagata, into the corner. And then Nichols makes his comeback, and he goes for his finisher, the Master Blaster. And this is a pump handle driver, and dude, he drops Henare on his head. And I had the same thought that Kevin Kelly vocalized. Kevin Kelly just yells, shit! And Henare is immediately checked on. Nichols pins him for the 3 count. This was absolutely frightening. And dude, Henare was down for a bit. They're checking on him. He does get up, but he is helped to the back. I don't even feel comfortable rating this. I did not enjoy this. I thought it was sloppy. And very scary in multiple instances of this. And, you know, two key ones involving like the neck with the tornado DDT and then this master blaster at the end. Say nothing of the headbutt spots. I really did not enjoy this at all.
Yeah. I had a very similar reaction, John. The headbutts enough to turn me off, but then seeing this finish,
it was really ugly looking. Like it was amazing. He was up and like he was being helped to the back, but I mean, Jesus Christ, was it scary?
Yeah, like it looked like an Emerald Frozen, but with the sheer like straight down drop. And you know, I have to say, this in any match would be concerning. In the fucking opening round undercard match, third match from the bottom, like third match of 8 on a fucking opening weekend of a G1, it's stupid. Like really stupid. And I really hope Henare is okay after this. I mean, I think he was walking to the back, so you know, or help to the back, but on his feet. So at least there's that much. But I hated it. I thought it was way too reckless for my comfort and my enjoyment as a fan. It was probably like one of the most reckless wrestling matches I've seen in a long time between those two very dangerous things, the skull and skull headbutts and then that sheer drop on the head. I would take skiers in my head any day over some of this type of stuff. And I would certainly take 1,000 Yano Goto matches over something like this. I was comfortable rating it, John. I gave it a negative large. So that would be like, large. You know, me drinking my coffee and I'm spitting it back in my cup and then I'm serving it back to Tim Hortons. So a bit of a first there. I did not like this.
Yeah, I'm giving this a Yelp review. Yeah, this was just I really thought this was like the low point of the tournament so far was this match.
The booking was confusing to me too, because like I mean, I think to have a guy come out with a brand new look, much less a face tattoo, I don't know if the best way to, you know, have him come out of it would be to have him lose.
I think for a lot of these, you have to look at the big picture of where they're going and where the points play in. And Mikey Nichols is also someone that, I mean, he's not one of the standout performers. And sometimes you do want to give him that big win to get out of the gate with someone.
I guess I get that for most of the people. I get that for like a, you know, Tai Chi. I get that for like a lot of guys. But you only get one chance to debut with your face tattoo.
What if Goto had booked this entire tournament through the end and then Henare like rings him up and say, hey, I have this idea for a tattoo. And then Geto's like, oh man.
Oh shit. Too late.
That's really going to connect with people. And I've got you going like 2-7.
And Hanare's got Shingo Takagi as his next match.
Henare has Shingo Takagi.
Yeah.
This was, you know, it's Lance Storm always says this, and it's one where, you know, you'll see something like this and you hear after the fact, oh, he was fine though. It's like, okay, he might be moving and he can do this, but it's like, this stuff adds up for guys, and it might not be the effects of this are felt now, but it's like you're adding things up on your bump card, and it's like it's the neck, and you don't know how you're going to wake up the next day either. And long term, like stuff that you can have. And believe me, I don't think this Master Blaster was intended to be this vicious.
So,
but nonetheless, it's something that I mean, you'd be very uncomfortable taking after seeing something like this.
I think for me the bigger concern was the skull and skull headbutts. Part of me was wondering, like, I mean, was
there's no like,
was Nichols
that
in
was
any
the intent? Yeah.
Was Nichols in any condition to perform a spot like that at the very end, having gone through a skull on skull series of headbutts?
I mean, it's a totally valid question and stuff that I think you should be, you know, focusing upon of like the leeway given here. It's like these. I don't know. To me, it's like when you live through something like Shibata, to me, that's a industry altering event that if you're not learning from it, I mean, what are we doing? And for a company, like forget, like if you want to just be so callous as to not even think about the well-being of your performers, at the very least, covering yourself as a company that, you know what, those are out. Like that spot, you're not having any different opinion without the all fours clunking head spot in this match. That is like it's there. It's a forearm exchange, like with your head. Like that's what it is. It's not even like the memorable moment of the match. And I hate them, but they, you know, there's still a preponderance
They
of them.
don't seem to be occurring like in WWE certainly, and I've never seen them in AEW to my recollection. Certainly after this memo, I don't anticipate seeing them much. But for whatever reason in Japan, at
Still
least
get the chair shots to the head in Mexico. I mean, there's some places that they just like that stuff does exist. It's less. It is less. But anyway, so that was our definitely the concerning match of the show.
Mhm.
Shane Haste was following this. So Kosei Fujita had to walk to the back with Mikey Nichols and then immediately come back out here with Shane Haste to take on Alex Coughlin. And the story coming into this is Alex Coughlin's speech at the press conference that I only saw bits and pieces of. I didn't see the whole thing, but they were joking about it here, about how he put everyone to sleep with how long it was.
I mean, that was more heel talk, wasn't it? Like, who was joking? It was Jeff Cobb, right?
It was Jeff Cobb, later that brought it up. But in essence, he was sharing a story about New Japan and trying to get. He wanted to get 2 t-shirts for his parents, and New Japan wouldn't shell out 2 t-shirts to send back, and instead told him, like, there's a Halloween sale going on if that's any consolation. And he was like, all this time away from my family and in the dojo and working hard, and you can't even give me 2 t-shirts. And the fact that he was not even booked in the G1 until Aussie Open signed with AEW and created 2 slots that got Alex Coughlin in here. And it was listening to this. And then you also had yesterday for the Umino Narita match where they're talking about the whole Three Musketeers label. And Chris Charlton, God bless him, like he's trying to explain, well, New Japan knew they would hate this label and they don't want to be the new anything. They want to be the first versions of them. So it's New Japan almost like lighting a fire under them by putting this label that they knew people would revolt against.
So they purposely didn't give Alex Coughlin the 2 free t-shirts to fire him up for this G1.
That was not it. But and then in this one, Chris is like, I understand people's frustration with companies that make record profits and still let people go. And he's explaining all this. And it's like, to the viewer out there, like this mysterious head of New Japan, like they're the ultimate heels. Like it's just like, what a heel company when you hear like these stories from them. It's like they just screw with their wrestlers.
This is how like in New Japan they don't like. I don't think they have to vet anybody's promos whatsoever, especially for these press conferences.
No, there's no way you would want Alex Coughlin going out and just, man, like you could not make New Japan look worse than this story that he told.
I mean, but what was the pipe bomb, right? Like so much of like great material for a wrestler is just like their bitterness towards their company, especially in this case, like a heel with the Bullet Club, who I think is supposed to be very anti-authority anyway, chip on his shoulder. Like it resulted in a big, great promo from Alex Coughlin, and certainly got him on a lot of people's radar. I thought coming off of that excellent press conference overall.
So Coughlin is caught on a dive and gets suplexed on the floor, and they state that Henare is being evaluated in the back. And then Coughlin goes after referee Kenta Sano, just yell, "You motherfucker!" off a 2 count. And then Coughlin goes and grabs the strong tag title, and Sano takes it away as Haste is able to lift him up for a Uranagi off of his shoulders and wins the match in 10 minutes and 57 seconds. It was, I don't know. I found this to be a very bland match between these two. They did not jump out off the page, and both of them were in that position to put a spotlight on them. And I think Coughlin had a bit of buzz coming off of this press conference. And I don't know. To me, they didn't stand out in the block or on the show.
Agreed. I thought the match itself, like maybe in any other promotion, it would have been perceived as good, but in the G1, I really found it largely forgettable. In terms of personality, I thought they both unfortunately felt rather generic, though I do feel like Coughlin has grown as a heel. But I do think maybe I was also critical of maybe how nonsensical Alex Coughlin's decision was to bring weapons in. And Chris Charlton even brought it up here. Well, what's this guy going to do? Like, get himself DQ'd and lose points? Like, what was the intent here? That he was so frustrated that he was going to, DQ himself by it?
Like, he got the belt here, and then Sano took it away and saved him because they would have been disqualified.
And then that ended up being the finish. It was like he got distracted by his own weapon being taken away, and it led to him eating the pin. So I didn't love that. Didn't really kind of make him look great. Didn't really make either guy look great, to be honest with you. So for me, it was a medium, 1 cream.
I mean, the silver lining here is that he probably does get a G1 t-shirt.
I hope so.
Can I get a size for my mother by any chance? It's like, well, we're doing our summer sale next month. So 10 minutes, 57 seconds. And yes, it's Shane Haste getting the 2 points. So TMDK 2-0 on
What's
this
your rating
so far? I give this one a medium with a hint of sugar.
Okay. Hint.
A hint, as you know, you get the hint. Shingo Takagi and Eddie Kingston next. Okay, this one was not bland. C block match. Kingston is out with the strong openweight championship, and this guy, it's like he is walking into the biggest match of his life. That's the aura he presents when he walks out for this entrance. And
just honestly, this scene alone of like seeing Eddie Kingston in the G1 standing across from Shingo Takagi, you know, as anybody who maybe has followed his love of Japanese pro wrestling, just seeing him in Japan in the G1 across from a former champion like Shingo, that in itself was like a holy shit moment, really. Like to
4 years ago, this is impossible to imagine.
Yeah.
Like where Eddie Kingston was.
Mm-hmm.
So they immediately get into chopping one another, voluntarily giving each other's chest to the other, then into slaps, and an Hurricane sends Takagi to the floor. Takagi then hits a superplex, and each with chops to the neck, and the striking just escalates. Each pop up from lariats. Takagi is staggering from a suplex, lands a lariat, and both go down at the midway point of the match. Northern Lights bomb by Takagi to Kingston, who kicks out at 1. How dare you try to beat me with the Northern Lights bomb?
Is that the rule now? Like everybody's like trained their move so much that like it only results in a 1 kick out?
I will say the one, and granted, I'm watching a lot of wrestling in a lot of different companies, but the 1 count spot is starting to get very leaned upon. And it's going to vary. I think people's
Did Yoshihiko kicked out at 1?
I know, kind of bastardizing the spot. Pumping bomber is hit by Takagi for a 2 count. Then an Hurricane lands for Kingston when he comes back, and he hits the Northern Lights bomb to win in 12 minutes and 53 seconds. And if you did not see it afterwards, I watched most of the backstage interviews, and Kingston, surprise, surprise, a really great speech after where he admits he was holding on. He came in with he was talking big and came in with a brave face, but he was actually very nervous for this. And he was not happy with his performance, mentioning the recent hernia surgery. And he thanked Shingo. I'm not going to talk trash to sell tickets, but Tony Khan, give us time and put us on either All In or All Out. I was waiting for one of those Japanese reporters to say, what does give us time mean? But yeah, this was him just probably just shooting a shot here because I would bet heavily that this is not on the books, and this would be Kingston just hoping for a singles match with Shingo Takagi, which they very well may get at some point. I just don't know if it'll be on those cards, but we'll see.
Well, I certainly hope so, because I think this was the type of match where if taken place anywhere in North America, it would have been like a surefire, like memorable match of the week, maybe even match of the year contender. In Japan, I thought the crowds, while engaged, I kind of felt like I was missing that next level of buzz, towards the latter portions of the match to really take the excitement to the next level.
It's going to be interesting to watch Kingston throughout this tournament because, like, yes, AEW programming is on like New Japan World and stuff, but it's like AEW is not this, national phenomenon in Japan. And I would imagine there's a lot of people that are just getting introduced to Eddie Kingston and don't know his backstory, his love of Japanese wrestling. It's going to be his interviews and stuff that are going to endear him to this audience. So it'll be interesting to see if he sort of grows on people and makes that connection over this next month.
Yeah. But booking wise, I mean, obviously, I think it's great. Having Eddie get a strong win over a former champion makes him look really good. It tells the audience this is somebody you should be paying attention to for the duration of this tournament. It makes New Japan strong and AEW look really good as well. So a good introduction for Eddie. Good, hard hitting war of attrition type of match with great intensity. I went large, 1 cream, 1 sugar, and put a sleeve on it.
Ooh, sleeve territory. That's because there was so much heat. You need the sleeve. I went large with a milk and a sugar on this one. This was my match of the show of the 8 matches that we saw. So next up, it is Hiroshi Tanahashi and Zack Sabre Jr. re-engaging their rivalry that never disappoints for me. And first of all, let us talk. This is maybe better for WH Park, but we have the new Tanahashi G1 line of clothing, where he is wearing this kind of top that does not cover the chest, but covers the arms. And
he looked like a member of Pretty Deadly.
Pretty Deadly. Exactly. Yeah. That's exactly what he looked like here. And Chris explains how Tanahashi does not want to coast off his name. And Kelly is explaining, the high fly flow, he doesn't need it. He doesn't need it. So it's like they are certainly working in all of the concerns and criticisms Tanahashi has received. And the fact that this guy, his knees are a mess. And I think that's somewhat of the frustrating part, is that if you were going to look at someone that would have the genius level to totally reinvent their style and get away with taking out key parts and introducing safer things, easier things, Tanahashi is the one that you would rely upon. Like he does not need to work a Tomohiro Ishii style. He does not even have to work the Tanahashi of 3 years ago style. So, I mean, this tournament is going to push that for him.
I'm really curious to know, and we might hear about this from either Karen or WH, who I believe watched the Japanese commentary. At least I know WH for sure does. But do the Japanese commentators mention, Tanahashi's performance in those AEW Toronto shows? Or is that just Kevin Kelly and Chris Charlton because, obviously they're catering to a more English-speaking audience?
Well, we know Liger wasn't on commentary this weekend because he had a very big engagement. And we will see if Liger's on commentary. Maybe, I mean, the guy was pretty brutally honest recently in the media. I can't tell you about the Japanese commentary. My assumption would be they would not be leaning as much on that as Charlton and Kevin Kelly are, where I mean they are just on the air and they go. It's not like they have somebody producing them and feeding them, stories and stuff. It's like they just go.
Well, I only ask because how much does it actually inform these matches and the sort of I don't know, creative decisions and the storylines within these matches? Is Tanahashi actually going to go through this G1 playing, beaten down veteran, or is that just something we're all making up as English speaking audiences?
There probably are those examples where it's like, I would not doubt that there are times like Kelly and Chris are kind of forming their own stories of what are we calling and what is the story unfolding in front of our eyes, and it is much more of like a sports based presentation in that sense, where it's like they're not going off of like they're not being produced and have all these like, hey, these are all of Ghetto's stories that he's pushing. And this is, I would imagine like they don't even know where this tournament is going. So it's very much like just calling it like a shoot in many senses. And they're just forming their own stories as they're going along and what develops, whether that's in sync with the performers or not. Like they would have that communication with them, but it's an interesting part of the New Japan English broadcast experience. So we see a dragon screw in the ropes by Zack. So it's Zack utilizing a lot of Tanahashi moves, and then vice versa, that they eventually called it opposite world here with Tanahashi incorporating more of a submission-based offense in this match. But it is the knee of Tanahashi that is being beaten on by Zack Sabre Jr., who was probably taking notes on the Canadian swing for Tanahashi. And then Tanahashi stops a cloverleaf and tries for the triangle, but Zack snaps the knee. And then after a sling blade, Tanahashi goes to the top, and Kevin Kelly brings up the slip he made in Toronto. But it's only an aces high by Tanahashi, who Zack rolls through on and then lands a kick. Tana battles for an armbar and gets stacked by Zack, and Tanahashi still has his hands clasped, so he doesn't release the grip for the triangle, and he gets pinned in 16 minutes and 12 seconds. And Kelly says that Tanahashi was stubborn. He has to change his style. He needs to be a counterpuncher instead of an offensive juggernaut. And with that, TMDK goes 3-0 on the night.
I thought it was an excellent match. This actually was my match of the night, John. It's the type of style that I maybe tend to favor over just, the hitting each other a whole lot. I thought it was a match that told a great story, whether or not intentional.
No headbutts though in this.
You know what? Yeah, could have really missed opportunity here to, go do some skull and skull action. It's the type of match that I think Hiroshi Tanahashi can still excel at pulling off at this stage of his career. The story of the vet with a brittle body, particularly his legs, selling his ass off at the barrage of knee attacks from the best submission wrestler in the whole game right now. So,
I could watch these two just I love watching these two together. They are so perfect opponents.
They're made for each other. Agreed. They've always shown great chemistry, but I thought this time there was an added wrinkle of like Zack using Tana's own playbook, which is very much knee focused, with the dragon screws and the high fly flow. And it made sense because Tanahashi has his own weak knee problem. So this was also Tana trying his best to keep up with Zack, with throwing in some like a flying armbar here from Tanahashi. Not one high fly flow in this, and I don't think this match needed it at all. It was very engaging. XL for me.
Okay, does Tanahashi hit 2 or more high fly flows in this tournament?
So again, this is all like dependent on whether or not this whole like aging veteran is even a storyline.
Well, he hit 0 here. Like he didn't even do one to the back. He didn't do like the tees or anything. Like he went to the top, but never did we even like. Sometimes you it's like pretty much you're gonna get at least one to the back, if not the follow-ups.
If he can go through this entire G1 like not hitting one until like the last few matches, I think that would be wonderful. A wonderful way to like make this G1 a bit different for Tanahashi.
That's the Randy the Ram moment when he hits the high fly flow.
It costs him.
Yeah, that's it. I thought this was. I was much happier watching this than some of the Tanahashi matches we had just seen here for AEW. So I went large with a milk and a pinch of sugar on this one. I didn't put this ahead of Kingston and Shingo Takagi. That said, if we're grading the entire performance, which includes Zack Sabre Jr. going backstage and speaking to the media, it put it pretty high up because he is just holding court with these reporters. He is 100% vegan, George Michael approved, and people are writing off Tanahashi, but Zack notes, I made that mistake in the past. Me, I'm like a majestic dog, a Siberian husky. He's calling Tanahashi the Siberian husky, while he is a gazelle. He's long-limbed, but he wants to be a dog. Japan's #1 dog. And I came to New Japan to be IWGP champion. This is my 7th G1, and all I'm focused on is getting out of the block stages. The G1, it stands for Great Bloody Techers. Sure. That's the Tracy Smothers rule of
GBT1.
Yeah. So there you go. GBT1. Zack Sabre Jr. A treasure with these interviews after his matches.
What do you think of his press conference?
Oh, I only saw it because you retweeted his segment, and it was
so great.
I mean, it's literally open mic night for these New Japan wrestlers, and like what they think that it's both what they think will be entertaining and what they are capable of pulling off. And your degree of overness is going to dictate that. And Zack is at a level where he can pretty much do anything, and it's going to be amusing. Because if Jeff Cobb tried this, I'm sorry, Jeff Cobb, but Jeff Cobb's still finding his voice.
So what Zack did was he basically went up there and like the G1 press conference, everybody goes up and has their time, and you can kind of tell like, well, even if you're blind, even if you couldn't even understand either language, you could tell who the foreigners were and who the Japanese wrestlers were. Because typically a Japanese wrestler would just go up and be very straightforward. I'm going to win the G1. I'm going to try my best. Exactly. Then like almost all the foreigners would come out with either like really like intense long promos, like American style, or in the case of Zack Sabre Jr., like open mic night, where he just like spent 2 minutes checking his microphone. He's testing his vocal cords, and he's just
he hit some high notes. Like, can you imagine this guy karaoke?
I'm just, George Michael. Yeah, sure. But like, it's all the more funnier just given maybe like the natural sort of like demeanor of like a Japanese audience that's just kind of like always super polite, and like people are chuckling and like they're recognizing what's going on. But he goes 2 minutes checking his microphone in front of this live audience before he just says something in Japanese and in one sentence and gets huge applause for it. It was wonderful.
He's great. I'm picking him to advance in this block, and he's kind of outlining like that is his story for this tournament. He's never gotten out of the block stage. Evil and Tama Tonga is second from the top in the C block. So Evil attacks him before the bell, and Tama fights back. They go to the floor and then up the ramp where Tama's suplexed onto it, then into the crowd, and Tama is sent into the seats. And this was bizarre because Evil goes back to the ring. So you have the sense he's willing to just take the countout victory. But then he leaves the ring, thus breaking the count, and rings the bell, putting his arms up in the air. And Chris just calls this out, like, what purpose did that serve by breaking the count? And then he goes back into the ring to wait for the count, which Tama makes it in at 19. So in theory, if this guy had not left the ring, he would have won this by countout.
I mean,
who made the worst logical choices in this show? Evil or Alex Coughlin?
Yeah, I, if you're in a Bullet Club subgroup, somehow maybe you end up not, your logic goes out the window. It sounds like.
So then Evil goes for the cover, and Red Shoes does the deal where he turns his back and he won't count. I hate this spot. It makes no sense. If what he did was so egregious that you won't even pin him, you won't count the pin, then that's a DQ. He did something so horrible that you will not give him the win, then you're taking it away from him. That's a DQ.
I mean, I'm not going to disagree with you, but I think we've been shown that the Red Shoes persona is one that respects sort of like entertainment value to a high degree. Like, somebody who puts entertainment value and conclusive, satisfying endings for an audience above the rule book. And that means not counting when it's, the result of a weapon shot or something, illegal, and not DQing people because he thinks that'll, upset the audience as well.
And he also got his anger comes and goes because by the end of the match, he was there to count the 3. So there's a kick out spot, and Evil launches himself onto Red Shoes, so takes him out. Dick Togo gets involved. They're double teaming. They hit a magic killer, but Tama Tonga kicks out at 1. Then he applies the Darkness Scorpion, and Tama reaches the rope, lands a Tongan twist and a Supreme Flow for a 2 count, and then Togo's back, snaps him on the top rope, avoids everything as Evil, but then Evil stops the gun stun, and Tama roars, but is run into the exposed buckle, and after hitting a gun stun to Togo, and a Bloody Sunday to Evil, Evil kicks out, and when the referee is sent into the corner, Tama's gun stun is blocked, and behind the referee's back, Evil hits a low blow, and the Everything is Evil. 17 minutes. Yes, 17 minutes and 34 seconds as Evil gets the 2 points.
Yeah.
The tournament.
My reactions to this one are a little mixed. I thought Tama's fire displayed in the closing portion was really strong. He had a lot of crowd engagement for his comeback. And at this point, I come to expect like these shenanigans from Evil, and so they don't really bother me. In fact, like I just see it as another move in his arsenal. Like distracting the ref is akin to like somebody pulling out like a dragon screw, for instance, for Tanahashi. And I thought it actually made for some pretty exciting moments in these closing sections here. Powering up Tama powering up to gun stun Togo before succumbing to Evil's final ref distraction and low blow. All of it was paced really quickly and actually really good. But of all the matches on this card to flirt with the 20-minute time limit, I definitely would not have picked this one. I thought it went way too long, especially this deep into the show. I found myself dozing off several times. And for that reason,
this was longer than the main event.
Yeah, it felt it too, John.
That's my biggest thing. Like, I understand the Evil template. I'm not going to complain about it every single time we talk about it, but I do think there is that sort of compromise that if you're going to do that Evil type of match, I think it does have that like 10 to 12 minute shelf life.
Agreed. I mean, it should really follow like the Yano time limit, with that sort of gimmickry. But I went medium, 1 cream, 1 sugar for it.
Yeah, I had it medium with 1 milk, 1 sugar, and the sleeve, but not large territory. But I did put this ahead of several of the middle of the card matches. Jeff Cobb and Tetsuya Naito is the ending to this day's show in the D block, and Jeff Cobb had. Well, we'll get to his speech afterwards, but Cobb teases a dive, but instead does the tranquilo pose to mock Naito, and then goes to the floor, and he steps right on top of Naito as he's going past him. Naito makes his comeback. He's on the turnbuckle, and Cobb power bombs him off of the second buckle, and there's this ugly-looking Rana by Naito off the buckle, followed with a tornado DDT. spin cycle by Cobb, and then Naito comes back with Destino, but it gets countered with Tour of the Islands, which was a very nice counter, but Cobb is down and can't go for the cover. Another tour is countered by Naito with the inside cradle, and then Cobb hits a release German. Naito pops up from it, and then Cobb lifts him from the mat into the Tour of the Islands and wins, beating Naito in 14 minutes and 20 seconds, which I will say, like, it was shorter than the match before. Did not overstay its welcome, though, and I thought they had a really nice, compact Tetsuya Naito match, and Jeff Cobb gets the win and then cuts his promo after while wearing an LIJ hat.
Naito's hat.
Naito's hat, like the LIJ hat, and he does his own version of the roll call for the United Empire. And
I think we should mention, like, Naito's whole story going into this G1 is that he wants to main event Wrestle Kingdom one more time towards, what are maybe like the latter portion of his career, the sunset of his career, because he wants to finally do his LIJ roll call inside the Tokyo Dome, a moment that was robbed of him from Kenta when he actually won the main event of that year that we went, John, 2020.
Yes.
So, Cobb doing it here, stealing it, I mean, was just, more salt in the wound, wasn't it? But it was awesome. I thought this was a very good match. A lot of strong personality from Jeff Cobb here. It's been a while since I've really checked in with him. So I didn't realize his charisma had improved this much. I thought he played a great dick here against a guy who kind of has made a name for, being a dick in Tetsuya Naito. Whereas Naito, on the other hand, in this match, I didn't think he had a great night here. I felt that there were a few sloppy moments.
But the Rana was really off.
And the combination Cabron, early on, like where he couldn't get over the top.
He tried it twice, didn't he? He hit it on the second.
Yeah. But some nice transitions by the end. And I thought, like, Cobb turning the Destino into, like, the Tour of the Islands was beautifully executed.
The Cobb stomp, that would be a good element to incorporate.
But last thing, thank goodness for this 20-minute time limit, because if that didn't exist, we would have had 10 minutes of Naito just dragging this along, taking his shirt off, taking his button pants off. I love not having to sit through like a 30-minute main event for New Japan just because it's the last match.
Yeah, I went large on this one, large with a milk, but I like the main event. I like the length of it. And, Jeff Cobb, we kind of talked about, like, what's his role going to be in this D block, and at least getting off to the start, beating, like, a significant name in Naito, who I believe is going to have a very big tournament. I see him advancing, and I would put him on the short list to win the entire thing. Yeah,
I think I would too. I just maybe given that storyline alone.
You have the champion that would make a lot of sense if Naito were to win this in Sonata. Yeah. So there's a lot going for Naito, he's been in a background role, and maybe by design, we're going to see based on the booking of this tournament. But you have that lengthy story going back to 2020 of, like, the big roll call.
I went large, 1 cream, 1 sugar for it. Actually, it's tied with the Kingston match as my second favorite, maybe a little bit below that.
Backstage, Cobb says this tournament is all about Wrestle Kingdom redemption. At Wrestle Kingdom 15, he lost to Takagi. Then at Wrestle Kingdom 16, he lost to Naito. This year, I wasn't even on the show. I was in the pre-show New Japan Rumble. And he says that his next opponent is Alex Coughlin. And he makes fun of him for having the 17-minute speech that everyone fell asleep for. But he asks, "You're a machine. Well, what happens to a machine when it's thrown into the ocean and lands ashore in the islands?" Rusty machine.
He didn't say rusty machine.
Oh, yes, he did.
He said rusty machine.
I watched this twice.
I thought that was your joke.
No, that was his joke. He's like, rusty machine. It's like, oh my God.
Clearly that was not approved by anybody in the back, because nobody in their right mind would have
Nor
said,
would it have been mine if
great.
you ran it by me. I mean, what is it? What kind of machine is that? Rusty machine.
I love, like, English promos in Japanese wrestling promotions, because nobody, like, they don't, like, nobody but the people online are going to understand, like, what they're saying anyway. So, like,
this year I'm watching every promo before we talk, because they're the best. I mean, I couldn't, on the New Japan World YouTube, they didn't have the Japanese wrestlers subtitled yet, but they usually do those for newer
Those are great too.
viewers. They're really good to follow along the stories, and
Yeah.
they do typically a very good job with subtitling the Japanese performers.
And because, you know, this is like pretty much pure wrestling in this entire tournament, these promos, these backstage interviews are really sort of like the only storytelling buildups that you really get. And for that reason alone, they're worthwhile.
They're certainly worth the time if you do. So there you go. That was the second show. I don't think the first weekend like blew me away. Like, oh my God, this is just going to be the tournament of all.
What was the match of the weekend?
In the G1 or match of the weekend?
Just the G1. Just the G1.
Well, my match of the show for night one was Umino and Narita, and night two it was Takagi and Eddie Kingston. And I really love that Narita Umino match. Like that one, it got over the time limit. I thought I failed to mention this, but the job that Kevin Kelly and Chris Charlton did, that was my favorite called match of the weekend, because if you 5 years from now, when I guarantee you they will be feuding with one another much higher up on the card, you can listen to that match, and Kelly and Charlton pretty much outlined the history and the future for these two and why they are going to be two of the key people, like right down to Umino. He fights like Moxley, looks like Tanahashi, and he has an attitude like Naito or something like that. Just making the comparisons, while Narita is like no frills, no gimmicks. He's just like the black boots and tights and like the Shibata influence. I just thought they did such a great job of telling that story. And anyway, a long answer to your short question. I'll go Umino and Narita. That was my favorite.
I'm in agreement, at least for the G1. Match of the weekend, maybe I'll ask you tomorrow.
It was a crazy weekend. I saw a lot of great wrestling, but a lot of wrestling this particular weekend. I haven't even seen everything, but there you go. That was night number 2, and I'll quickly just go over the matches for the next show, and then we can do the contest update.
Yes.
Okay. So Tuesday night, myself and WH Park will be doing the show, and it's the show in Yamagata, and we have Kaito Kiyomiya against Chase Owens, Great O'Khan against Kenta, Gabe Kidd against Hikuleo, Taichi versus Tangaloa, Ren Narita against Yota Tsuji, Will Ospreay against Yoshihashi, Sonata against Shota Umino, and Kazuchika Okada against El Phantasmo. So I would say the top 4 matches sound very promising for that show.
Yeah, it does. Sorry, I can't give you any analysis. I'm trying to pull this thing up, and it's really slowing down my computer.
Way is going to give us an update on how the contests are doing. And then, so Tuesday, it's myself and WH. And then Wednesday show will be Bruce Lord and Karen Peterson back on the cafe.
All right, let's go to postwrestling.com/G1, where all of you guys can go there to find all of the links to all of our G1 coverage, all the results, all the links to all the podcasts for all you Post Wrestling Cafe and video.postwrestling.com subscribers. And also, it's where you can go to find Chris Angler's Post Wrestling G1 predictions contest results. He works tirelessly to get these up in a relatively short amount of time.
Look at Dickie Bird. What a weekend.
So we have here our top listener contest standings. This is of all the people that have entered so far over 2 nights, who it sits atop, and it is a tie between David Carson and Matt J, both scoring 11 points. Now, what does that mean? How many out of...
means Matt Jackson was on the ball this weekend.
Wow.
Clearly keeping up with New Japan booking.
Yeah, so congrats to David Carson and Matt J. Can they keep their lead? Because it's a huge tie for 10th. At 10 points for second place between Chris Gannon, Dickie Bird, as you mentioned, Don L, Eric from Court, Hobart, I am Corey, Jake D, James TD, Jeremy Flintstone, Joshua P, Night of the Living Dallas. Is that a
lot with 10 here?
Yeah. Okay. Optimus Maximus, Pete in Texas, SMNE Radio's supercomputer randomizer. Okay, if that's somebody from a supercomputer representing SMNE radio. Congrats on getting 10 right. Stephen P, Tom H, and Trevor S, all you guys are tied for second place right now. So it's anybody's game right now still. Of the Post Wrestling family block standings. Now, Chris Angler makes sure to make a separate section for all of us that are contributors to postwrestling.com. So some of these names you might recognize here. Let's start from the top. Eric Marcotte.
Look at that.
Oh, this kid. Great voice. Great appearance on Detox this past week. 9 points, sits atop the standings, gets 5 today.
Wow, he was 5 for 5, 5 out of 8 today.
5 out of 8, I believe. That's what
I got to get it out of my head of like 5 being a perfect score.
That's more than the rest of us because it is a tie for second place with 8 points between the archivist Brad Copping, W.H. Park, John Clanchester, John Pollock himself, and just as strong as all of you, RandoBot 2000.
All right, I'm on pace with RandoBot. That's a win.
The person to beat, our own supercomputer randomizer here at Post Wrestling. And then third place, it's John Pine, our GCW reporter, John Cena of a Collision Course fame, Lowdown Davey P himself is at 7 points, and then Neil Flanagan also at 7 points, tied for third place. And then in fourth place, sorry to say, Bruce Lord, you did awfully. You're at 6 points. You only scored 3 points today. You're at fourth place. And Wei Ting, you also did horribly because you also scored 6 points and you're also in fourth place. Listening. But maybe the only silver lining is that neither of us are in last place because trailing at the very bottom of this spreadsheet, Mr. WrestleNomics himself, Brandon Thurston, entering the contest this year. And,
don't underestimate Brandon, okay? This is like Osprey being 0-1 right now in his block, okay? This is the man with the 24 gigabyte pythons. He is going to be ready.
I'm sure he's feverishly calculating all the stats right now to see like who has the best chances of going forward. But I guess all his picks are already locked in. So, we'll see. We'll see how Brandon does. But
you know what? Can I work a bit of a plug in here? Maybe Brandon is not calculating all the G1 stats because that is sort of exclusive territory of one particular person that gets a shout out on a lot of these New Japan broadcasts. And wouldn't you know it, that this coming Wednesday, Chris Samsa will be the guest on Pollock and Thurston as we will be talking about G1 stats. Okay, so look out for that this Wednesday.
I would love to see Chris Samsa's G1 picks. Do you think he does them?
I will ask him if he is involved in any pools or if that's a conflict of interest.
Interesting. Okay. Let's finally go to the listener prediction statistics. Below are statistics showing what percentage of listeners as a group correctly predicted the winners of today's matches. 8. Okay, I won't go through all of them, but the biggest upsets I have to say tonight were Evil defeating Tama Tonga. Only 28% of you predicted that, followed closely by Mikey Nichols defeating Aaron Henare at 29%, and also Shane Haste beating Alex Coughlin. Only 30% of you guys guessed those. So those are your biggest underdogs tonight.
I'm surprised so few thought Eddie Kingston was going to win. I mean, I'm almost 100% sure I picked Eddie Kingston in that one. It just seemed, the outsider coming in, you give the big win right off the bat.
I guess because Shingo is such a big name, maybe.
That reinforced my pick for Kingston as well. But hey, maybe people did not see Eddie Kingston winning this one. But anyway, always fun to follow along with the contest, and we will be constantly updating you throughout the tournament. So that is it for Wei and I. We are back Monday night with Rewind to Raw, the whole schedule for the week, and it is a busy one. That will be up Monday morning at postwrestling.com. And again, the next G1 show will be Tuesday night with myself and WH Park. That will be on the Post Wrestling Cafe. So you have to jump on board to follow along with that, postwrestlingcafe.com or video.postwrestling.com. And you will be getting shows covering each and every G1 match, rated, maybe not recommended, but we will tell you whether it's a skip or a seek out.
One last thing we're actually doing at the end of this. I need to know what I should put for recommended on the description. So what would you say, John? Let's kind of deliberate on air.
Okay, I'm gonna give 2 matches for sure for me: Shingo Takagi and Eddie Kingston, and Tanahashi and Zack Sabre Jr. Those are the 2 matches I would put on my short list.
So when I say recommended, I mean I also don't know if I would just put like good matches too. Like, what do people need to see coming out of this that might be either newsworthy or just a good match?
Do we? Well, Mikey Nichols and Aaron Henare was newsworthy, but I'm not going to recommend you go watch that.
Okay. All right. Fair. I would include the main event as well. I thought it was good. So maybe those are 3. Zack. Okay. The Zack match, the main event here with Jeff Cobb, and also the Eddie Kingston match. So there you go.
So there you have 3 matches. If you're short on time and who isn't, those are the ones to go seek out. All right. Have a great, sleep, and then we'll be back with more shows. So off to watch more wrestling. Goodbye.